Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Extra Time, the U.S. Men's National Team Soccer Podcast. I'm Tim. This is Ryan. We are back, and we just realized we don't have any kind of cool slogan or catchphrase or saying. So if you got any ideas for us, drop one down below. I think I tried one time to say what I'll say at the end of all of this, and we'll see if it sticks. On this episode, we're going to talk about the USA-Canada result. We're going to ask ourselves, are we finally the undisputed Kings of CONCACAF? We're going to talk about some of the tactics that have changed for both sides from World Cup qualifying to now. We're going to discuss Aaron Balogun's first goal, the depth of our roster, Claudio Reyna's performance, and what that might mean, as well as give our opinion and takes on some of the players. All of that is coming up as we head into Extra Time. Let's get to it. All right, Ryan. So, United States, 2, Canada, nothing. How do you feel about this result?
Feel good, obviously, right? Like, it's a final. You win a trophy. Any trophy is good. Obviously, there's some that are better than others, but trophy's a trophy. We get that. Yeah, I think all around we played well. Obviously, you're not going to play a game without the other team having a couple of chances when it's that close skill level wise.
Mm-hmm.
Canada's not as bad as people want them, or as people believe they are. They have gotten much better in the last few years. Obviously, that is shown with them winning the group for World Cup qualifying and obviously making the Nations League final. I'm sure they'll probably have a pretty good Gold Cup run as well. So, you know, it's nice. It's nice. We win the CONCACAF Nations League. We come out on top again, back-to-back trophies. So that's nice.
Yeah, and I almost think it's back-to-back-to-back. But I'd have to fact check that. I heard a couple of content creators saying it was back-to-back-to-back.
It might be.
And yeah, but I mean, I really should be fact checking that. I'm, could be a better fan at this point. But no, I was thrilled. It's nice to see the United States men on such like a run and such a string of performances as we've seen. I mean, when you look at the team as a whole and the results as a whole, we had a loss to the Netherlands. And outside of that, there really haven't been too many performances where we weren't getting results when we felt we needed to get results. I look at the United States right now, and I think about where we were before, and we just didn't see the same kind of consistencies before. We didn't see the same kind of expectation, right? This is the United States. We're the powerhouse in CONCACAF. We're the largest nation. We have the best athletic stuff, the best sporting stuff. Like, we theoretically should be putting forth the best teams, and we saw consistently Mexico beating us to that punch. Obviously in 2018, we didn't even make the World Cup, and so we had a lot of room or had a lot of need to grow. We had a lot of space that we needed to fill. And in that time frame, while we certainly filled it, Canada also filled it. Canada, a team that wasn't on anybody's radar in the World Cup cycle where we got knocked out. They didn't even make the hex in that group. All of a sudden, like, here they are. Their golden generation is stepping up, right? Their golden generation is coming in. They got guys playing overseas. They have Alphonso Davies, arguably probably like the best left back or wing back in the world in that position. And so I was just thrilled. And we got it in manners that we don't typically get, right? Like, we scored early. We got an early goal. Chris Richards coming up huge for the United States.
Both first half goals, which is something we struggled with during World Cup qualifying.
Right. We struggled with a lot of those things. So it was nice to see the United States doing things we typically don't do, doing them in a fashion that was decisive, right? We put a definitive result on the table. That didn't really beg too many questions, right? You sneak a 1-0 win out, you score 2 first half goals and then pack it in the second half, and the other team gets one back, and it's kind of close. Maybe we can start asking some questions. I didn't have too many questions in this performance which leads us to the only question that everybody's asking, and I think it's only fair that you and I weigh in on this. Are we the undisputed Kings of CONCACAF? Does this solidify that title for us?
I mean, if we're going based on recently and winning, yes, obviously it does. Like we won the Nations League, so we are the best team in CONCACAF. It's like if you win the World Cup, you're the best team in the world, right? There's no disputing that, right? Like Argentina won the World Cup, they were the best team in the world. So out of all the CONCACAF teams, we just won. So we should be considered the best. Like, it's not like we won on a fluke, which that I could say like, okay, maybe we aren't, right? Like
but is it worth factoring
there's like
in...
an own goal or something, and they really dominate play, and we just, our goalie stands tall, but we don't really generate any scoring opportunities. Then you can be like, yeah, maybe we're not, right? But the whole game was back and forth. Canada had their chances. The U.S. defense played well. Matt Turner made a couple nice saves, and our midfield and our strikers played very well. I mean, so did our defense, like obviously as I said. But the first goal coming from Chris Richards on a nice set piece off a corner, which is another area we've struggled, is set pieces.
This is a bunch of games now where the United States picking up goals on set pieces, when this has been a place where we historically struggled and had been telling our fans this is where we're putting the work in. But we'll get to that.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say if you're going based on who's in CONCACAF, how they match up against each other, and how games have gone, you have to put the U.S. at the top, right? We handily beat Mexico.
But do you have to factor in games outside of this tournament? Like, how much does World Cup qualifying play into this? Because we talked before, Canada was very consistently and solidified atop of our group. And I know that, I can't necessarily remember exactly what your opinion was on at the time, but I know that I had spoken pretty clearly about getting to the World Cup is going to be a very different performance than being at the World Cup. And it seemed to me like the United States did the work they needed to do to get to the World Cup, and Canada did as well. And I personally thought people were giving Canada too much credit for sitting atop the group, because the only teams that had really tested them were us and Mexico. And at the times that we were tested, the games didn't matter too much.
Yeah, I mean, it's that whole, if we finish fourth in our group, we still qualify. So if we're sitting in spot 2 and we know there's no physical way that we can get eliminated unless we get blown out in 3 straight games, why play guys? Why not play guys that could be on the roster going to the World Cup, so you can see how they fit in with guys in case there's injuries, in case you got to make substitutions, right? So as much as I want to say the U.S. could have won that group, I don't think we could have. But at the same time, I feel like that last game we played, where if we won, we'd have finished in second instead of third. I'm not quite sure the guys were trying, knowing that unless we lose 7-0, we qualify for the World Cup.
100%. I agree with that 100%. And I think it brings, like, you make a lot of good points, and it brings my brain to the thought of, look at the roster that we played in this game, right? So you're talking about the World Cup qualifying, where we had a lot of games in situations where we didn't play a roster. Now, granted, the roster was still designed to win, right? Like, it was still Greg's mentality that we need to win the game. But we were also kind of playing guys where it's like, yes, I want to win, but I also need to know what you can bring to the table, and I need to know what this roster can do in case I got to go this deep in the tournament. And I think this game in Canada was an example of that paying off, right? So the game already starts with Miles Robinson injured, so we got to go 1 deep in that area. We're down Weston McKennie. We got to go 1 more deep in that area, right? We're down Serginho Dest, so we're going another deep in that area. And Tyler Adams is still injured, so we're going another spot deep in that area.
Ream.
Right, so now you're going to your second or third defender is coming in. Now I will talk about Joe Scally in a second, because I think in this game he proved that he could potentially compete for a starting spot. But we have Chris Richards, who, again, could potentially be competing for a starting spot, but is somebody who is typically coming off the bench or a situational player. We have a Brendan Aronson, we have Luca Della Torre, and a Giovanni Reyna, who, Gio certainly proving his spot to be starting. And honestly, my gut reaction was, I don't know if it's, to me, it's coming down to I'm playing Tyler Adams, Giovanni Reyna, and now I'm debating between Yunus Musa and Weston McKennie. But I'll come back to that so we can have a discussion on it. And so you're looking at this roster where Canada is probably playing their A and a half team, right? Because Canada's not perfect. Buchanan coming off the bench, right? We know they got injuries. They didn't really get a chance to have a long camp coming into this. So I'll give them like they're playing like their tier 1-5 team, right? Well, we started the game playing a tier 1-5 team, and then we drifted into like tier 2 in some areas. And you could definitely see a difference in the final 10-15 minutes of the game. Once we really took our foot off the gas, there was a noticeable press from Canada, right? So exacerbated by the fact that they just needed to score goals. But to come back to the issue at hand, did any of these players in the depth to you in this roster show enough of a performance that they deserve starting spots? Because for me, I thought Joseph Scally was incredibly impressive given who he was matched up against in Alphonso Davies. I think Chris Richards was fine. I think he won a lot of balls in the air. I think he didn't really bring anything going forward to our defense that we didn't already have. We still kind of struggled, to get through into the midfield, which is where I thought Scally was impressive. For about the first 10-15 minutes, Canada really pressed us hard. And then I don't know if you can recall, but then Joe Scally hit that ball over the top to Christian, who made a run in behind the back line. And all of a sudden, the dynamic of the game changed because we realized we could bypass the midfield. It was something that we talked about during the World Cup and World Cup qualifying, that we didn't have players who could be creative and bypass the midfield, right? And so looking at our midfield situation, seeing a Giovanni Reyna, being down a Weston McKennie, being down a Tyler Adams, did the players on the field show enough for you? Well, I'll just leave it to you. Like how did you feel about the depth? That's my opinion on the depth of the roster. How did you feel about this? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I mean, I think everybody played well. That started. I think everybody that came in played pretty well, except in my eyes, Luca Della Torre. He had a lot of turnovers where he would make a run and he just got his pocket picked in the midfield or our attacking third, and where he had plenty of time to play the ball before that. And that is, in my opinion, uncharacteristic of him. He tends to not be like that. I don't know if he was trying hard to prove that he should be a starter, or if
it was very uncharacteristic of him, yeah.
Or if he was told something on the bench like, hey, we want you to try this. He's going to try it. I think
hearing that, if you had to pick 3 guys to start in the midfield right now, which 3 guys would you be starting? Because it was before this, it was MMA, right? We're playing Musa, McKennie, and Adams. Have these 2 games, has this camp changed your opinion on those guys?
No, I actually think if the U.S. plays like a 4-4-1-1, our strategy is better. And we go Musa, McKennie, Adams, Reyna, midfield, and then you play Christian Pulisic in that drop 9 spot, and you play Florian Balogun as the number 9.
So you wouldn't be playing Timothy Weah.
I mean, and that's the tough part.
That is
I do want to play him. He's got speed. He's shown that he is a solid player. But if I'm looking at what I think gives us the best chance to win, I personally think that 4-4-2 or 4-4-1-1 works better, especially if you allow Christian and Balogun to roam to either side that they want to be on.
Now, I'll take you up on that. I'll make one statement that agrees, and then I'll give you a kind of an opposing statement. So I think if we're going to play a 4-4-2, I think we put Weah and Balogun up front, because they've been 2 guys that we've seen stretch the defense extensively, and I think we drop Christian into the midfield to have him play out on the left wing, kind of where he is in there. And my opposing opinion is, I found myself wanting to drop Weston McKennie from the lineup and put Reyna in his place, which I still haven't really kind of chewed on that enough to see how I feel about it. But that was what my gut was telling me, and it felt awkward because, and everybody who's followed us knows, I thought Weston McKennie was the player of the year over Christian. And I just, ever since he's kind of left Juventus and struggled at Juventus and had that injury, I just haven't seen him get back into full form. Whereas I've watched Giovanni Reyna just continue to rise and climb through all the adversity he's been through. How do you feel about a statement like that?
I mean, I could see it. But at the same time, I like Weston McKennie because he plays for the badge.
Right.
Which is not something you see out of. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Gio Reyna, that means he's a terrible player, but he's not that guy to go into those scrappy challenges.
Right. Weston brings something bigger than just
and
a
we
game.
need and in the midfield, you need somebody who's going to go win those 50-50 balls as aggressive as Weston McKennie is. Right? Like, there's a reason why when Weston McKennie went to Leeds led the league in slide tackles in the midfield between him and Tyler Adams. They led the league, right? Like, they just do it. It's something they just built into their brains. They're like, this ball's a 50-50. I'm not letting up. I'm winning it.
And they still get relegated, which is sad. But yeah.
Yes. Well, the injury to Tyler Adams doesn't help there. But Gio Reyna, Yunus Musa, even Christian Pulisic, if you put him in the midfield, Luca Della Torre, Brendan Aronson is a little bit, but they're not those guys that go and win those tough, even 40-60 balls with as much vigor as...
Correct. I was honestly surprised at how well our midfield did, given that I didn't really feel like Brendan Aronson contributed a whole lot.
Oh, I thought he played great.
He played really well. I do agree that he played well in these games, but I just don't think he contributed anything that I'm used to seeing in him, right? I did think that he played significantly better in the Canada game than he did when he came on in the Mexico game.
So right? I think what his whole purpose is on the field, and again, this is just from me watching it, fan standpoint. I have no idea what he's being told by the coaches. I think his only purpose is just run guys into the ground. I don't think he is playing to win balls. I don't think he is playing to make great crosses. I don't think he is playing to make goal-scoring opportunities. I think his job is when a guy is near him that has the ball, he puts pressure on them, makes them work to get away from him. If they get away from him, he runs them down, makes them do it again, and just slowly wears down the guys because he's a workhorse. He's got the energy. He's got the endurance. His whole purpose is just, you're going to have to work for every inch of space when I'm near you. And I think it wears guys down. And I think if you look at Florian Balogun's goal, the header that comes from Weah to Reyna is one of those guys that has been stuck with Aronson all game and is slow to react to Gio Reyna making that play through.
Which is just unreal. It's just unreal. Gio played absolutely unreal.
So another thing I noticed, let's jump into Gio. We'll go right into Gio, right?
Sure.
Great game, right? It's unfortunate to see the injury near the end of the first half, right? Like, he could barely walk after the game. I don't know if people watched the ceremony afterwards, but everybody let him go first. It took him a considerable amount of time to walk like the 10 yards to the podium.
It did, and I was honestly surprised that we didn't see more from the referee in that situation, because that tackle was pretty wild.
I don't think it was the tackle that injured him. I think it is as he was going down, Kennedy running back, that trips over him. And I think it's just an awkward collision that there's no way to stop it because Kennedy doesn't see it happening as he turns around to run, and Reyna just falls kind of in front of him. But Reyna plays unbelievably well for the first half, right? Great corner kick. He floats it right up there. Chris Richards attacks it, scores his goal. Chris Richards becomes the first player for U.S. history to score his first ever international goal in a final.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We go 20 minutes later. Florian Balogun does the same thing. Scores his first ever goal in a final for the U.S. national team.
Yeah,
right?
Folarin just...
Now, now if we go to the goal that Balogun scores, the ball from Reyna is the exact same ball that you would have seen play to Erling Haaland.
Or like a Harry Kane. Yeah.
No, so, and I say Erling Haaland because
Yes, I think you're more accurate with Erling Haaland.
Gio Reyna played with him.
True.
At Dortmund.
Very true, yep.
So when you watch that play, it's Florian Balogun is constantly on the move. Erling Haaland is always on the move. What does Florian Balogun want? He wants the ball played to his stronger side, which is his right foot, where Erling Haaland's would be the left, and he tells Gio Reyna where he's going. Literally, as he's running, he points. He just points.
And he said it in his post-game interview. He said, like, I knew Reyna saw me moving, so I just went and just to give him a space to play the ball. And it was a perfectly weighted ball.
Yes, and it's that weighted ball that it's exactly what somebody who is stronger and knows the game better does to a defender. All Balogun does is get body position over the guy, gets an arm in front of him to stop the run, and goes, I'm stronger than you. I am a striker. I score this goal. And he does exactly what you would see any world-class striker do. There is no hesitation. It's immediately one-timed, near post, as hard as he can hit it, right in the net.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's that when I watched the goal, the replay, I was like, I have seen that goal numerous times this season watching Man City play. And it's just from two different players. It's from Kevin De Bruyne to Erling Haaland. But it's the same ball. It's the striker is making a run. The midfielder sees it. The perfectly weighted pass. The striker gets his body in front of the defender, so there's nothing the defender can do. It's a one-time ball. It beats the goalie.
Mm-hmm. And
right?
I think to go back to talking about Gio, because this is a significantly different Gio than we saw during the World Cup. And I want to leave out all the drama and the coaching crap, because I personally don't think that has as much to do with it. And I could be wrong. I'm not in the locker room, right? I don't know what these guys are thinking.
It's the frosted tips.
But I don't think that has as much to do with it as Gio just getting that time to grow as a player, right? Because I think just the fact that he didn't play at the World Cup was enough for him to go, my game's not there yet, and I need to elevate myself and go there. It doesn't matter what your coach says in a press conference. It doesn't matter what your mom and dad say, right? Because honestly, mom and dad, if you take their stance, are saying their kid already is good enough. And the Gio we saw on the field doesn't reflect that. He doesn't reflect a player who looked at World Cup Gio and said, yeah, I'm good. I got this. He looked like a player who said, you know what? I'm gonna take some time to reflect. I'm going to try to get back after it. I'm going to try to, put in a performance that gets me more minutes at Dortmund, maybe gets me a transfer, and comes out here and proves a point, knowing that there are players that are injured and that he might get to see playing time for the U.S. team. And he's gone through two interim coaches, right? So we saw Hudson and now Callahan, that both probably had a slightly different approach, and we know how different coaches go. They might play the same tactics, they might play the same style, but one of the things that I heard from In Soccer We Trust, right? I think it was Jimmy Conrad who said this, and I could be wrong, could have been Heath Pierce, but was one of them. Callahan acted more like a coach of high-quality players than Greg has. And what I mean by this is, when you think about, like, big professional coaches, your players have the talent. You give them the layout, you give them a tactic, and then you let them go. And I felt like I agreed with that statement, that Callahan put the players on the field that needed to be on the field and said, I trust you guys, you got this, now go make it happen. And kind of put his hands up and said, I don't want to get involved in this too much. I want to let the talent speak for itself. And we saw a little bit more freedom. Yes, we also saw areas where we struggled, but I thought Gio was a player who flourished under that mentality and was able to be more creative when we needed more opportunity, to be more direct when we needed more direction. Christian didn't have this effect on the field. I thought Christian made some kind of an impact, but there were moments where I honestly found myself saying, I think Christian's the most selfish player on the field right now. And that's normally something that I felt about a Yunus Musa, about a Brendan Aronson, about a Giovanni Reyna. And I was just blown away by Reyna's ability to hustle both on offense and defense, to keep the mentality up, right? To keep the mental energy up, to be more of that Weston McKennie role in encouraging his teammates. Now, he's not getting stuck in, right? because we saw that in Dess and we saw that in McKinney. But, when you see the hustle, he assists both goals. He was a key component of multiple other chances that we had, and he was somebody who every time he got the ball, he created a threat. And that's the Gio that I want to see. And I wanted to address that before we start talking about Balogun, because I know how excited we are to talk about Balogun.
And I feel like, yes, some of it I think has to do with he wants to better himself, right? Every player does. There's not a player on the field that goes, well, I'm already the best I'll ever be. Why try anymore? Right? Like, all the good players are always going out there going, I can do better. There's something I can do better. Let's do it. I also think a lot of it has to do with he's got a striker now to play the ball to. Right? So
100%.
much more space opens up for our midfield when defenders on the other team realize they can't leave our guys open.
Mm-hmm. And we talked about that a little bit before, that how much of a difference it would make if a Ricardo Pepi came into form, or if we tried to put Tim Weah up front.
Yep.
Because look at the change that we saw in the confidence in our players when they realized that guy up front is a threat and the other team has to mark him.
Correct.
So now Gio can run at defenders.
Yep. He doesn't have to worry about the 2-on-1s as much anymore, because if two guys get sucked to him, he knows somebody is open.
Mm-hmm. And the guys, you think about the guys around Gio. He had Tim Weah to his right.
Yep.
He's got Yunus Musa inside him, and if
Pulisic's
even switch. So if it misses Yunus Musa, it's going to Christian, and he's got Balogun up front. I mean, as long as you hit a player in the red, white, and blue, you can't make a bad mistake. You can't make a bad pass.
Correct. But that being said, I know Reyna got 2 assists. Probably everybody's player of the game.
I take it not yours. Who's your player
correct.
of the game?
Mine would be Anthony Robinson.
Okay.
He made 3 critical plays on defense, breaking up a pass to a ball that was on the goal line, basically. One of them was early in the, well, not early, but it was in the first half.
I'm glad that you tracked that, because I was also impressed. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was also impressed watching him come across the field and intercept balls that previously, yeah.
Correct. In the World Cup, he was the guy that was watching. When the Netherlands scored 2 of their goals, that should be his guy, or at least he's in the shooting lane, and he's not there. This game, he sees his guy going to the front of the net, and what does he do?
I hope you're listening at home. This man is dropping knowledge right now.
He goes to the front of the net. He gets his body in front of the Canadian striker. He gets the ball away from his net. Now, I'm not saying other defenders didn't do that. Joe Scally has a beautiful block in the second half, and Matt Turner praises him for it. Gives him, like, high five, hug, right? Like the you just saved a goal kind of shit you get from your goalie, right? I've done that a lot as a goalie.
But this is substantially different from a defensively as a whole unit, to see guys like this getting stuck in these tackles and covering these lanes. When in the Netherlands game, we just stood, like you said, Robinson was a guy who was ball watching.
Correct.
And he was the guy that I was upset with afterwards, because he watches the guy come in and score a goal, and he's got his hands up blaming other people. That's your man. And in this game, we saw him take that accountability, just like you said. We saw him come across the midfield and disrupt Canadian players who were wide open, who should have had easy goals. Now, there were also a couple chances, like Laren should have scored.
Yep.
I mean,
he should have. But
when he hit that ball at Matt Robinson and Matt Turner, and it came right back to him, and all he had to do was basically hit the net, and it was going in, and he just skied it. It was like, dude, there's a couple chances at the end that Canada needed, but again, that was also after we made a lot of subs and after we took the gas off and all these other things.
And if you wanna play that, there's a moment in the second half where Balogun should have had his second.
I think Balogun should have had 3 or 4.
It gets cleared off the line, and even Balogun thought it was in. When I watched it live, I thought he scored.
Because he beat the goalie, and it just hit the defender, yeah.
And I thought the Canadian defender was in the net. So I thought it was a goal. and Balogun's got his hands up and he's freaking out, and then doesn't go, and then you watch the replay and it's not close. But in real time, I was like, oh, I think he's got it.
Yep, and that's why I think we need to give this guy hype, because when we saw Jesus Ferreira get chances like this, nobody even had to make a save. He didn't hit the net. When we saw Ricardo Pepi get chances like this, nobody made saves. He didn't hit the net. And here we are with Folarin in his second game, playing with players he's never played with, right? In his first camp, guys have the confidence to hit balls to him. He has the confidence to go to the ball. And he's creating extremely dangerous scoring opportunities. And every chance he had to hit a shot, he cranked it. And before I continue with Balogun, let's not forget, Zimmerman and Weah both hit amazing volleys in this game. Zimmerman's, I thought, was going in, and that would have been wild if he scored that, because that was just absolutely incredible.
Now that's a center back strike right there.
Oh, get out of here! And
away from the net.
I give the man some more credit. That's a two-time MLS Defender of the Year.
It was an absolute beast of a volley. I also thought when he made contact with it, the way it came off his foot, I was like, holy he just scored.
Right.
And it went wide, and I was like, man, how wide was that? And the replay, it's unfortunately a good distance wide for soccer, but
I mean, when you connect,
Weah has the good one,
right? Weah does, and that's the other thing I really liked about having Balogun up there, is we have Weah's threat potential goes way up, goes way up. Okay, sorry, and that was just really corny and cheesy, but we have another guy who's a threat in the box now, and the defenders have to mark him. So when you think about stretching the defense, typically the U.S. strategy was we're going to play Weah in over the top. He's going to be our primary guy that's going to stretch the defense, and if the other team figures it out and they start overloading that left-hand side, we're either going to our right-hand side, but their left-hand side. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Gotcha.
No, that's good clarification so people can follow us. If they overload the side that Weah is on, we're either going to continue to try to do it, which we've seen us do, just kind of force the issue and have it go nowhere, or we're going to try to switch it up and play it to a player like Christian who at least then didn't have the pace to beat the guys that he had. Or we were trying to play over the top to Pepi, who was just too timid. Now we have Balogun, who is just going to stand there and be like, if you cheat to Weah, I'm wide open. And we saw that because when Gio attacked on that ball, Weah's open, he's going. And Reyna's just like, how about I just play it to this guy? And, and Balogun smacks it in the back of the net. And that's a striker's goal, right? I like that you're bringing in Erling Haaland. And I'm not, by any means trying to say I think Balogun is as the quality of striker that Haaland is. But I agree with you in the style of striker that he is, that he makes these small runs, and he's got this big, powerful presence, and he just wants to let it rip, right?
Just go watch all of Erling Haaland's goals from last season, and watch how many of them look almost identical to what Balogun just did.
Right.
That diagonal ball, run in the box, hits it one time on his stronger foot, beats the goalie.
Correct. And a lot of top strikers in the world have been that way, where all they needed was a ball length distance.
Yep.
Right? And it's something that the United States, so when you think about strikers, okay, there are strikers that, like a Kylian Mbappe, who want to have some width, who want to be able to have some pace, who want to be able to do some running. There are guys like Cristiano Ronaldo. They want to dribble at guys. They want to do some moves. They want to beat it, whatever. Lionel Messi, who wants to do combination plays, dribble at guys, beat guys up. And then there are players like Erling Haaland, who are target strikers. They want to sit there at the top of the box. They want to be a threat. And they want to wait for that one moment where a defender slips up and they're not marked and they bury it. They want to wait for that one moment where somebody plays them a ball and all they got to do is get a ball length distance between them and the defender. That's all they need is a shooting lane, and they're going to get chances. And I agree with you. That's what Balogun reminds me of. A player who's always looking for that. Anytime he had a chance to shoot, he shot, and he cranked it. He ripped it. And we saw that in this goal, right? The ball gets played through him. He puts his arm out. He's like, yeah, I got enough distance, and he just smashes it. And there's no question about it. And I don't think there was a doubt in his mind that he wasn't scoring that goal, right? So he just put his laces through it and put it in the back of the net. And we saw it with his left foot and ripped the defender blocked. He just put his laces through it and said, hey, I got an open net. Can't miss. I'm just going to crank it. The defender's in the right spot and makes a good play. So it brings what the United States team has been missing. And the reason I make that comparison is because when we have been playing that 4-3-3, we have been using that center guy as a target forward to stretch the defense as we play the ball wide to Weah and Christian. And the problem that we talked about endlessly, like beating a dead horse on this podcast, was that none of the guys felt confident enough to swing the ball into the box because our target forward wasn't a target. We found ourselves going all the way in and then going back to McKinney here, going back to Musa, going back to Adams, and then trying to swing it back around. And nobody was shooting. And all of a sudden, we didn't see any of that in this game. Possession was okay. We didn't possess as much as we did before, but it was okay. And it was good enough. We saw a lot better defending. We still kind of struggled a little bit to get the ball into our midfield, but we also were playing a different identity. The identity was, let's just go, right? Let's just play a little bit more of a hybrid counterattack and just like smash the ball up the field and let it rip. And just like we saw in the Mexico game, when the other team turned the ball over in the neutral area, in that midfield area, we took the ball and went. And we took no prisoners, and and we really unleashed it. So I'm excited for Balogun. I think he could finally be the number 9 that we're looking for, and I'm really hoping that he gives us that. Although I'm sure he wouldn't care if he wore 20 for the rest of his life.
So I had a question for you, Tim. We're gonna do this like hockey. Give me your 3 stars.
3 stars, huh?
Yeah, give me your 3 stars for the U.S. And you can do it from 3rd star, 2nd star, 1st star.
Okay. So so I got to give you 3 stars. Thinking about the game. All right, if I'm going to go with...
Because I've got mine.
All right, so my 3 stars are going to be Chris Richards as star number 3. And I say that because I think for somebody who has gone through the adversity that he's gone through, as far as like injuries and stuff and losing playing time at Crystal Palace and stuff, and he's young and I'm sure he's not sure what's going on. You didn't feel that on the field. He was very confident. He won a lot of balls in the air, and he did what you needed to do on a corner kick, which is get yourself into a position where you can win the ball. And if you are given that space to win the ball, you win it and you put it in the net, right? Uncontested headers have to be goals, and the difference between high-quality teams on set pieces and mediocre teams is your ability to convert set pieces when you are not marked. And I thought Chris Richards did great on that, and as well as putting in a very acceptable defensive performance. My second star...
He almost had 2 heading goals.
He did almost
scored
have
a header in the second half.
My second star of the game is Balogun. 1, because he scored his goal, and 2, because of all the reasons that I previously stated. I think he's really coming into his own. He's certainly showing that he has the ability to do everything else, and as stars in the game go, the man's got a goal. And then my top star of this game is Giovanni Reyna. He's got both assists. He created an immense amount of threats throughout the midfield. He was an incredible asset to us, and you really felt the difference after his injury and he got subbed off. We just couldn't put a player in that spot that was able to do all the things that he was doing.
So mine, 3 is the same, Chris Richards. I think, like what you said, great goal. He sees the opportunity. He capitalizes on it. It's the perfect header. It's right at the ground, right? It's even right at the goalie, and it doesn't matter, right? Mm-hmm. Like, watch the replay back. That ball is pretty much a foot.
It's right underneath him, basically, like at his feet.
It's so hard, right? If that ball is headed down at the line, it's just in if you're not already standing in front of it. My second, Gio Reyna. Great game, and he only played 45 minutes, right? So let's say he's my second star because of only 45 minutes. If he played the whole game, he might be number 1. But my first star, as I said before, is Anthony Robinson for just an all-around fantastic defensive performance. And I think he personally stopped 3 goals, which for me, somebody who's played goalie his whole life, is more important than scoring a goal.
I can get behind that. A lot. I think
I'm not saying Balogun played poorly.
No, I hear exactly what you're saying.
Right? Like, he doesn't have the game winner. Chris Richards does. I think Chris Richards could do without the mustache, but...
I respect your decisions because I think too often you see a lot of people do sort of similar to what I did, which is, well, they had the points and they had the results, so they get the stars. Whereas I agree with you that if I had to do it just based on a performance, that it's going to be tough for me. Like, I'm probably putting Balogun as the 3rd star, Reyna as the 1st star, and probably Anthony Robinson in there. Maybe as a 2 or 3 star, just because he did have such a quality performance. Even Joe Scally really makes a point.
Matt Turner had a great performance. He gets a shutout.
Matt Turner made some phenomenal saves. This is another shutout for Matt Turner. I think if we don't see Matt Turner make a move off of Arsenal, I would be really surprised because Matt Turner is just showing that he really is a world quality. And he's a world-class goalie, and I understand he's at Arsenal, and Arsenal's a top club, but he's second at Arsenal. And I don't know if he's going to get a starting spot there, and I think if he's not going to at least split time 50-50 in high-quality games, I don't know if it's benefiting him. Now, I don't have any evidence for that, right? I know a lot of people are like, oh, you got to go somewhere you're getting playing time. I think you just have to go somewhere where you're growing. And if
when Arsenal started to tank, they should have switched their goalies and see if it made a difference.
It should have, right, and you could have done those things. But I just think every player needs to go to a place where they can grow and make an impact, which is why I think there's just no shot to me that Tyler Adams stays on Leeds. Although I wouldn't be shocked if Weston McKennie didn't impress enough to go anywhere else. Same with Brendan Aronson.
Well, Brendan Aronson has a clause in his contract that if Leeds got relegated, they can't keep him. So it's going to be interesting to see where he ends up.
Man, Leeds is going to be hurting. And I bought all those jerseys. All right, let's wrap this up on our last topic. Let's going ahead to the Gold Cup, right? We know that we.
Yeah, when's game 1 there?
It's in June, isn't it? Like soon.
It is June.
Is it like June? Like, is it? That's not the 23rd, is it?
It's the 24th.
So 4 days from now.
Yeah. So this Friday, the U.S. plays Jamaica in the U.S.
Yes, and we know we're going to see a significantly different roster.
Our group is pathetic.
Right, so we're going to see a significantly different roster. So my question to you isn't like I don't want to focus on the results. Granted, I want to win, yes, but this is about to just be a big repeat, right? Because you're going to play a couple group stage games, and then here you are playing Canada and Mexico again for the third straight cycle, right? And maybe not.
So Mexico, let's talk about that. I'm not saying they don't get out. Right, because it's Mexico, but Mexico has struggled.
They just fired their coach.
They just fired their head coach. Their group isn't easy. The last time the last Gold Cup, Qatar made the semifinals. Qatar is in their group. Right? Now, we saw how Qatar played at the World Cup. They did not do very well, but Mexico's struggling. So Qatar's in the group. Honduras is in their group. Honduras isn't bad.
No, Honduras is
they're consistently in the final octagonal. Right? Yeah, they might not do well in that final octagonal, but they're always in it, which means they're a quality team. So there's 2 teams in there that if Mexico loses one of those.
Right, Mexico's certainly going to have they're not going to be able to take as much risk. Yes, 100%.
Right? Now, I will say this, the US gets lucky and we only have 2 other teams in our group. Right? So there's 2 groups of 3, 2 groups of 4. The top 2 make it out. So barring an absolute disaster, the U.S. is getting out of their group because let's be honest, we have Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago. And I know 2018 Trinidad and Tobago is, nightmare-inducing for U.S. fans, but that's 2018. It's 2023, right? I don't think Trinidad has
Isn't that wild how we went from our A squad couldn't beat Trinidad and Tobago to we're probably going to see a C squad beating Trinidad and Tobago?
Yeah. Well, maybe – so now that I look at the schedule – Sunday, it says Trinidad and Tobago is playing to be determined. So are they adding a 4th team to our group, those 2 groups, and we just don't know who they are yet?
There might be like a play-in or something. I don't know. I don't know enough about the structure of the Gold Cup.
Okay.
So
here it is. Guadalupe beat Guyana to qualify in one of them. So Guadalupe is going to be in a group. Oh, no, they are. They're already in Group D. Yeah, so I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
So if you think about the United States, right, and again, we're still waiting for Chris. We're going to get this to you guys, and we're going to have a bigger conversation about Greg and the hiring process and on Yewu and all that stuff because more keeps coming out and there's more speculation and everything, and we want to have an episode dedicated to just that. But knowing that that's going to be the case, that we're going to see Greg, what is the expectation for us going into this? Should this tournament be strictly geared towards giving playing time to the players who are coming off of the U20 World Cup, who are looking for a chance to impress in the senior team? What do you want to see out of our U.S. squad during this?
I mean, I want to see them lift the trophy, right? It's what everybody wants to see when you're going into a tournament that has a trophy, right? You want to see if your team's in it, you want to see them wield it. I'm sure our goal going into is the same as Trinidad and Tobago's. It's the same as Guadalupe's. It's the same as Haiti. It's the same as Mexico. It's the same as Canada, right? You want to be the person that takes the field July 16th in that final, and you win the game and you hoist the trophy. That being said, I don't think it will be surprising if we see some other players during group stage, at least. Just because, like if we play Trinidad and Tobago, I'm sure we'll most likely be leading quite a bit at half. Right? And we might not. I'm not saying like they could surprise us. It's, who knows? But it's one of those where it's like we're most likely going to be leading at half. Let's throw in some guys, see how they play, so that if we need to make decisions down the line, we'll see it. But I would expect in knockout rounds, semifinals, finals, that you see that squad we saw in the Nations League. I expect we see the exact same team that started against Mexico, and I expect them to deliver exactly what they did in the Nations League in the Gold Cup, and that is a dominant performance from start to finish, where when we get our opportunities to score, we capitalize, and we don't have to be sitting there going, oh God, are we going to win this game? Or is the U.S. going to get scored on late and we're going to lose?
Agreed. Well, in the comment section, let us know how you feel. Is this the ability for the United States to just solidify their spot? If we smash through this tournament with a bunch of C level, B level guys, and our roster depth, is that what it's going to take for people to be convinced the United States is the real deal? Have we already done it? Are you already convinced that the United States is the Kings of CONCACAF? Or is this something that's never going to happen? You just are not buying into this. You don't think that's really a thing. You're not sure that anybody's going to get there. And maybe it doesn't matter. Anyway, we want to hear your comments down below. We appreciate you guys tuning in. It's going to be a busy session. We're going to be bringing you another episode about Greg and the whole thing. We're going to be covering the group stage games for the Gold Cup. All of that is going to be happening on this channel. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will catch you guys next time.